welcome back everybody to the My Generation podcast. Now on today's show, I'm going to be talking to Devon about a very personal story for her to do with brain damage, mental health. And Devon, would you like to start by introducing yourself and your story?
So I am Devon and I am a primary school teacher. I've been primary school teaching for about 4 years now. And last year, in May 2018, I was out with my work colleagues and I slipped in one of the clubs, and I then collapsed in the toilets due to the shock of the fall and went completely unconscious and woke up with searing pain in my head and neck and shoulders. And we know that I hit my head on the basin and on the floor, but we just didn't know where. Well, I carried on going. I went home and just carried on with my life as normal. Over the summer holidays, it didn't feel right. Very tired, very fatigued, more than I usually am during the summer holidays. There just wasn't something right. Went back to work in September and started with a child who was very physically violent towards myself and other members of staff and other children. It was a very, very stressful time with this child. And then on the 6th of October, I remember it very clearly because I was meant to be going to a show with my mum. And I was poorly and I couldn't go. And my partner was with me and we were falling asleep and I suddenly had a cluster of 5 seizures. And we didn't know what they were. I came round after each. So I had one, kind of came round, was okay. And my partner said, "What was that?" And I was like, "I have no idea." I then had 4 more, exactly the same, full-blown fits, seizures. And then I was unresponsive afterwards. So we ended up in hospital. And the hospital were not very sympathetic at all. My aunt had taken me and my partner, and within probably, after going in to see the nurse, within 5 to 10, 15 minutes, I'd seen a doctor and she said, "No, you're fine. It was not a seizure." So I went home, kind of just kept it, we thought, right, I've had one, why not have any more? And then on the 27th of October, I was at a friend's party, so I hadn't had any seizures since, and I was at a friend's party, and it was Halloween, and I sat down on one of the sofas, it was quite late, was calming down, and had a cluster of 3 seizures, and they called an ambulance. I had no idea what was going on. I was completely unconscious afterwards, unresponsive. I woke up with a rapid response car and a big ambulance as well, an ambulance bus with 3 paramedics there. They wanted to take me to hospital, but I completely refused, and then went home, started back at work on the Monday, was okay, but I'd promised my friends that I would go to the doctors, and on the Tuesday went to the doctors and went back to work, taught a maths lesson, and at lunchtime, work were aware that I was having seizures. And at lunchtime, I had a cluster of 2 seizures in my classroom in front of my TA, another member of staff, and my department leader. Luckily, we had paramedics and nurses over in reception doing an event day for the reception children. So the assistant head teacher, she went over, grabbed the paramedics and the nurses, and they came over. So I woke up and I had paramedics in the class. They were talking to me. They took me to hospital. In hospital, I had my mum with me. She had not seen the seizures. She knew I was having them because she knew I was going to the doctors, but she had never seen one. And when I was in hospital, they admitted me and they took me up to one of the wards. And as we were waiting, they tried to take my blood pressure, but I suddenly went into a seizure and went straight onto the floor.
They were getting more frequent.
They were getting a lot more frequent. Yeah, I could hear my mum in the background because I could still hear when I have a seizure.
But what about your vision?
Nothing. Complete blank.
So was it like seeing a blackness or?
Yeah. So my eyes close.
Yeah.
So unlike epilepsy where they can stay open, my eyes completely close, but I can still hear, but I can't do anything. I can't communicate, I can't talk, I can't stop. Yeah. It all just takes over, but I can still hear. And I could hear my mum getting really, really upset, and obviously that was devastating for me because she's my mum. I don't like to hear her or see her upset.
And it's the first time she was experiencing that.
Absolutely.
Like, seeing that, yeah,
the first time she had seen a seizure at all with anybody.
Wow.
Yeah. And so then I stayed in hospital. They kept their eyes on me, and then they just discharged me. They said they were going to refer me for neurology. I was fine, so I left. I'd kind of come back round. Stayed off work until the Friday, but I'd phoned up and said that I'd be back on the Monday. Well, I didn't go back that Monday. Over the weekend, I had pretty much seizures all day, every day, Saturday and Sunday, to the point where my dad actually phoned my head teacher and said, Devon is not coming back for a long time.
Wow.
I was waiting for my referral. I had nothing. It had been about 4 weeks. We'd been going to doctors constantly because I was off work. I could go to the doctors, constantly going. One doctor put me on anti-epileptic medication.
Yeah.
But if you're not epileptic and you take anti-epileptic medication, it gives you epilepsy. Yeah. So I then started to show symptoms of epilepsy, and I was having seizures pretty much every day, all day. Very severe seizures. I don't know anything that happened during November.
Yeah, well, all last year. Yeah.
Yeah. And we were getting a bit frustrated because I hadn't had any neurology appointment come through. So my dad called the hospital and was like, look, what's going on? They had put me on an 18-week checkup list instead of neurology. And my dad said, no, that's not good enough. She's had about 60 seizures in about 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, okay. Then within 2 weeks, I had got my letter through and my appointment was on the 13th of December with a neurologist. It was at this appointment that I got told it's not epilepsy. It is something called functional neurological disorder, specifically dissociative seizures. So what happens is the functioning of my brain, from what we now know from the head injury, has broken. It doesn't work properly, doesn't function as it should do. So when my brain gets too stressed, whether it's just from a bit of heat, dehydration, lack of food, stress outside of my body, such as work and life, it sends me into these seizures because my brain can't cope.
Yeah.
So my brain shuts down, which causes my body to shut down, which causes my seizures. So yeah, after that diagnosis, we started looking it up and how to support myself. I came off the epilepsy tablets and my seizures started to relax a little bit. They weren't as bad as they were.
So it was really sort of for you focusing on just de-stressing as much as possible.
Yeah.
That was pretty much the way of combating this.
Yeah. There's no medication that they can give me at all. They don't really know why as well. There's so many different causes, so many different ways to support, and it was just a very intense period of lack of understanding of what was going on as well, because it's something we'd never heard of before, and because it's a mental illness and it's something you can't see, that in itself comes with its own problems from other people's judgments as well. I started to get better, the seizures were diminishing, and I went back to work end of January, beginning of February. Had a phased return. What they say was a phased return. Obviously, into primary teaching, it's hard to have a phased return. You kind of just, you're either there or you're not there.
Yeah, because otherwise you're just a substitute teacher kind of thing.
Yeah.
But, so did you jump straight back into almost full-time work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, within about 2 weeks.
And how was that transition?
It was hard. You know, it was very, very hard because I was still having seizures. It wasn't as if they'd completely stopped. I was still very unwell. Yeah. But I couldn't stay off because my class needed me and stuff like that. So I had to go back, really. The first couple of days I was eased in a little bit easier, but by the second week of my phased return, I was pretty much teaching the majority of the day. Yeah, maybe an hour out or an hour or 5 to 10 minutes if I needed it. But yeah, it was pretty intense. By the third week of me being back, I was full-time teaching with no additional support. So yeah, and then I got back to work. Things started to get a bit better, a bit easier. I started to get back to a routine. I'm very proactive, and I was not going to allow this condition to run my life. So I did a lot of research and a lot of searching as to how to support myself, because they couldn't offer me treatment. I would have to wait 18 months for cognitive behavioural therapy. But yeah, I started to get better. I was back at work, and April the 20th, I had been 2 weeks seizure free.
That's good, yeah.
And then, unfortunately, on the April the 20th, I had a seizure down the beach. It was quite warm. I had a lot of family members there.
So was that probably due to the busyness and the heat and
Yeah.
Because there was that 1 week in April, wasn't there, that was just blisteringly hot just on its own. And so when you've probably gone from like quite a cold environment to suddenly really warm, was that it? Yeah, the stress of the noise, because where I have such a big family, they were all there, they were all talking, but there was like 4 different conversations going on, and it just was overloading my brain, and I couldn't cope. And I didn't have that many coping mechanisms because I was still learning about the condition. I was still developing what would work for me. And yeah, it wasn't a bad one. I'd had a lot worse, but it was the first time a lot of my family members had seen it. But what was also, like, as you describe it, even though it's terrible that family had to see that, you said it was one seizure.
Yes.
Whereas before you were having clusters, so even like 2 weeks free, and then on like a blistering hot day with the noise, it's one.
Yeah.
As opposed to before, where you would just be in a calm setting and it would be 4 or 5.
Yes.
So, what do you think was the main thing that helped bring all those down? Was it the realization of what it was and that how you can combat it?
Yes, definitely, 100%. Once we had that diagnosis, we could then look at the best form of treatment and the best way forward. You know, beforehand we thought it was epilepsy, but the epilepsy tablets weren't working, and it was so unknown to us. And then suddenly we had this diagnosis, and the neurologist was so certain that that's what it was. We were putting things in place straight away. I've found that music actually helps me. So if it gets too much, I just put earphones in, and my brain can just focus on the beats, the words, just that one thing.
Because it can cut all the rest of it out. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
And does also the type of music matter? Because you're not going to put on like heavy metal.
Absolutely. Yeah, it did take a little bit of time to figure out which music helped, because I like a range of music. I do like my rock, I like my classical, but I like country, and I mean, I like all of it. And, you know, there were times I would listen to a little bit of rock, and then I was like, oh, my brain's not coping with this, and I'd have to change it. So then I would think, oh, classical, let's put some classical music on. But even then, sometimes classical music...
It can be quite fast.
Can be quite fast and quite stimulating.
Yeah.
So I couldn't then listen to the classical side of things because of that. But I found a really good playlist on Spotify, actually. It's called Confidence Boost, and it's the beats in it, the words, it's all very similar.
We'll try and put the playlist in the description as well so people can hear what you listen to.
Yeah.
And is it it's all quite calm pacing?
Yeah, not necessarily calm, but it's got a nice rhythm to it. There's things like Selena Gomez on there, and it's about the words as well. You can just listen to the words.
And I guess having a consistent beat helps.
Yes.
So like, love or hate jazz. Jazz is quite a spontaneous form of art. And so it probably wouldn't work because the beats are constantly
changing.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So you need something with the consistency. Like what you said about getting back into work schedule, having a consistency has been big for you.
Yes.
And getting back from this.
Yes, definitely. That routine, that rhythm has really, really helped.
So was it in April when the music started to come in or something, or was that earlier?
It was actually slightly later.
Okay.
Yeah. At the time, I was trying CBD oil.
Okay.
I was vaping it, and that worked really, really well. I managed to go just before the 20th of April, back in March, beginning of March. I went 4 weeks without a seizure because I was on CBD oil, and that really helped because obviously that calms the mind and the body. And then I'd kind of stopped taking it because I thought I was like, I need to try and do this.
And get off any sort of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. And then went and had one and then was 2 weeks free and then had it on the 20th of April. But that was my last one.
And you haven't had one since?
I have not had one since the 20th of April.
And now this episode will be coming out in November, but we're recording this in September, and that's an amazing amount of time to have between them.
Yeah.
And so you think it's due to, like, you've now located what is causing them exactly, so you're able to take yourself out of every situation.
Yeah, it's not so much it's not so much take myself out of the situations. It's more of I now have a really good understanding of my body and the signs when they're starting, and I know what helps me. So during the summer holidays, we had this huge heat wave.
Yes.
And I've got a beach hut. My family were going down there. We were having a barbecue, and I knew I was going down there from about 12 o'clock to at least 9 o'clock in the evening. That's a long period of time for me to be outside in the sun. Even though I was in the shade for the whole time, it's still a long time. There's still that heat around you.
The humidity was pretty high as well.
Absolutely. With a lot of people, my whole family were down there. And obviously being such a warm day, there was loads of people around. So I took lots of things in a bag to support me. I took plenty of food. We have water and drinks down there. But I also took activity books and music, earphones, everything that I could think of to support me.
Yeah.
Just to distract my mind, because when it gets too much, you need to focus on one thing and one thing only. So I had a couple of books, and I do something called a bullet journal.
Okay.
Which is absolutely fantastic. I love a bullet journal.
And what is that?
So a bullet journal basically is a little journal, but it encompasses a diary, a planner, as well as an actual journal to write down your thoughts and ideas. It's just this whole... It's fairly new. You can find them on ideas on Pinterest, on just online. I actually have a book about how to kind of bullet journal, which was amazing. But it's just this creative book that you use your own way. You can have a weekly page or a monthly page, and that helps because you can just write your thoughts down, and it's all in one book. It's all in one place.
And obviously, because your family know about the seizures, they can be very supportive, and if you need to take some time away from them for a 10-15 to go write down something or just go listen to music, then that's okay. That's fine.
Absolutely. My family have been ridiculously supportive, so much, and everybody's been very understanding. So if on this particular day, this heat wave day down the beach, I could feel myself going, so I put earphones in. Then I would then interact with the family. and then I could feel myself going again, I would then go and get a book, and I would sit and read and write some notes, because the book I was reading was a study book. Then I would go and get my bullet journal, and I would do some of that as well. It was a very hard day, came very close, but it's about those techniques that I've developed for my body and my brain that have helped me cope with it and helped me avoid seizures. But I find walking as well, if it gets too much, I just go to my family, I'm going for a walk, and I'll be back. And I just take myself off completely on my own.
That is always a nice feeling, because that's the taking yourself out of the environment and just putting yourself somewhere different. Because at least you'll get a bit of wind going, you get your body moving, because I imagine movement's probably quite helpful. Exercise
is very good, because I couldn't exercise when I was in the height of it, because it's too dangerous to go to a gym, too dangerous to go swimming, and obviously the lack of energy when I'm at home, I just couldn't do it.
Are you now able to?
Yes. Yeah, I'm now able to. I've got a gym membership. They are aware of my situation. And turns out I'm not the only one at my gym that has a similar situation to me, which is good. So, yeah, I go to the gym. Yoga. I do yoga and meditation. They help brilliantly. They help so much, just with the calming of the mind.
And is yoga and meditation, so would you encompass that into a sort of a day plan at your gym? You do some meditation before you go, a bit of yoga, and that's a really nice plan. Have you got a routine to it?
Yes, so what I do is I wake up at about 5:30. I get up, do about 10-15 minutes of meditation. Then I follow this lady on YouTube called Boohoo Beautiful, and she is brilliant. She does yoga, Pilates, but it's all this whole range of videos. And I just do a 20 to 30 minute yoga video.
Do you mix it up, or do you have one video you go to?
Oh no, I mix it up. Yeah, depending on how I feel. Sometimes when I'm tired, I try and do an energy boosting one, or if I have serious back pain, I do a back stretchy one.
It's amazing how much is available on YouTube. Do you know Psyche Truth as well? Because they're another yoga channel that I used to follow when I had back problems. So, and they had so much content on the channel. You're thinking, I didn't know all this was here.
Yeah. This YouTube have been fantastic. I also follow motivational speakers like Jay Shetty. He's fantastic. Prince Era. He's brilliant. Fearless Soul and Fearless Motivation, they're really good. They're on Spotify as well. They just come up with these, the way that they portray and put across these motivational messages and videos are just fantastic. They certainly have helped me develop and change my mindset and have helped me grow as an individual.
And have there also been online forums or people you've discovered with your same condition that you've been able to relate to?
There is, and when I was in the core of after being diagnosed and trying to support myself, I joined a group on Facebook for FND diagnosed people. But the thing with forums is they can be very beneficial when they're used in the correct way. And I felt, for me personally, a lot of the posts were very negative. This has happened to me. It brings you down. And I found that every time I was going on there, instead of being lifted up, it was great. Yes, people are having the same problems as me. But what I noticed was a lot of them were dwelling on it. And that doesn't help. That doesn't help you at all. When you dwell on it, it makes it worse. So I was finding that I would go on there, and my mum was on there as well, because it's for people who suffer from it and people who care for people who suffer from it. So my mum was on it, and we had a lot of discussions about it. And I would say it's great. I'm seeing people having the same problems as me, but I'm also seeing people who are letting it take over their lives.
Yeah.
And that's what gave me more motivation to say, no, I'm not going to
if
be
you're gonna,
like that.
If you're going to talk about it, you want to...
Yeah, absolutely. It's like when we're at school and a child has autism. A lot of people say, oh, they're an autistic child. And I'd say, no, they are a child, first and foremost, they have autism. That doesn't make them who they are. You know, they have their own difficulties, but it's how we support that child. That child has their own personality. Yes, can be influenced by autistic traits, but they're not an autistic child. They're a child with autism. Like me, I am not just FND. I'm not just these dissociative seizures. I am a human being and I am a person with my own personality. I just have these difficulties from time to time with the way that my brain processes.
Yeah.
And that's okay. We're all different.
Yeah, it's like everyone's got something, and like it doesn't define you now.
No.
And so you're gonna, in a way, now start to become more of a success story. Like if there's someone listening to this with FND, that you are an example of someone who went from the worst of the worst with 5 or 6 seizures in one go.
Yes.
To it's been how many months now? It must be like
about
5.
5. Yeah,
months.
5, 6. Yeah.
And so over summer, obviously you knew the weather was going to get warmer. You knew you were going to see family.
Yes.
How were you feeling going into situations where you knew you hadn't had one for a while, but you said but you were quite nervous before the 9-hour day of being on the beach?
Yes.
How did you feel going into those situations?
Obviously, there was a level of anxiety there, most definitely, because every new situation I put myself in has a risk of overstressing my body and my brain, causing me to have a seizure. But I then have to remind myself, yes, there is that risk, but you have also worked very hard to minimise that risk by all of the coping mechanisms that you've put in place. So that was always my safety net. I have these coping mechanisms, these strategies to support me going forward.
And so, what would you say if someone's in this boat right now and they're not too sure on what to do next? What would you say is the first thing for someone with this to do?
Research it. Find out as much as you can about the condition. I found so much. The Mind website was fantastic, absolutely fantastic, and there's an NHS website as well. I can't remember which one that is.
Well, I'll get Devon to send all the links that we've been discussing.
Yes.
There's a lot of them, but we'll pack out the description with loads of links.
Yes, most definitely. So I did a lot of research, and within that research it gave pointers and ideas and tips in themselves, but it's hard because it is unique to everybody. You know, I like my drawing and I like my creativity, so that's what I fell into, all of that bullet journaling, whereas some people might be more sporty, so they would try and develop a sport coping mechanism. So,
yeah, it's going to be different for everyone.
Absolutely, but it is what works for you. But there are things you can try. I mean, I tried so much, particularly between March and May, constantly trying different things. But it really came when I realised that I could handle this. I had a couple of family situations where I had to cope with things completely on my own.
Yeah.
And when I was able to cope with them on my own, and I thought, no, actually, if I can cope with this, I can cope with my condition, and I can cope with whatever life throws at me. So it was more of a change in mindset.
Let's put things into perspective. And if you're you've made it through a lot over summer,
yes,
and you've made it with no seizures,
yes, absolutely. And I ended up getting cognitive behavioural therapy over the summer as well.
And how was that?
Oh, fantastic! I had this brilliant therapist. She was absolutely amazing. We got on really, really well. And that helped me look at my life and showed me, yes, I've been through what I've been through. It was a very hard time for me. You know, I was then diagnosed with depression because of what had happened, led to me going very down and very lost. So we built up my resilience towards that. My depression score was in the severe range, and I've got it down to none.
Oh, wow.
Through my therapy.
And what did the therapy involve then to create such a great result?
The main thing that stood out for me there was two things. So one thing, because I also have anxiety as well, and I overthink a lot of things. My therapist gave me this sheet, and it had all thinking errors. So that's what they're called, thinking errors. So it's when you're overthinking, so things like catastrophizing, fortune telling, when you're trying to predict the future, and it creates all this anxiety unnecessarily. And when I got that, that's when I started to notice a change in my thinking, because when I was thinking, I was then suddenly going, hold on, what thinking error is that? Oh, I'm catastrophizing. Oh, I'm catastrophizing. I don't need to worry. Yeah. I don't need to catastrophize. Let's think about what is actually happening here and now. That main sheet I still use today. And I even went to my therapist the next session. I said, that sheet was amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. And the other thing was, we did this formulation where we looked at what rule I follow in my life that's creating the majority of these problems. And the rule was, everything has to be perfect. There was no cause as to why I was feeling like that, but it was a rule that I had been following my whole life, that everything has to be perfect. I had to be the perfect teacher I could be. I had to be the perfect daughter. I had to be the perfect girlfriend. I had to have the perfect home. It had to be clean. It had to be, everything just had to be perfect. And obviously that's not realistic.
So you've let some of that go.
Yeah.
Because that will not only take the pressure off, if the house isn't fully clean, or if you over or under run a lesson by a couple of minutes, you're not gonna, you can let go of that now.
Yeah. And that was amazing. So what we did was we formulated that rule, and then I had to experiment out of my sessions, and I had to put myself in imperfect situations.
Oh, how was that?
Oh, that was a very tricky week for me. That was very, very hard. My anxiety did go up because I was putting myself out of my comfort zone.
And what situations did you put yourself into?
I had to be late for a hair appointment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So you deliberately, because I've heard about this as because I follow sort of philosophy actualization stuff, and that was one thing I've heard, that they use the example of getting to the front of a queue in a coffee shop that has a big queue, and deliberately not knowing what to order and going through every item on the menu to see if you can annoy everyone, just to show that you can let go of that. So that must have been so difficult for you.
It was so difficult.
And what was it like when you got to the hairdressers? How did you feel?
Oh, I went through a range of emotions. So at first I was like, right, I need to just stay calm. It'll be fine. And I just had to keep telling myself, it'll be fine, it'll be fine, it'll be fine. And I got there, and I was about 4 or 5 minutes late, and she was still working with another client.
So it was fine?
So it was absolutely fine. She was just finishing off with another client. And actually, instead of me sitting there waiting for 15 minutes, because I was normally this person that would turn up 10 minutes early, whereas instead of sitting there for 15 minutes, I wasn't waiting at all, because she was just finishing. I was then sat down, getting my hair done.
So it was all fine.
But
it was probably the journey to the hairdressers that was the tough bit, rather than actually arriving.
Yeah, the amount of deep breathing I did on my journey. And you know what? I left my flat late and was making every effort to walk slowly. And I was still walking, and I looked at the time and I was like, oh my God, I've still got 15 minutes left. And I was about 5 minutes away. So I took a detour. And I deliberately took a detour. You
still left too early.
I still left too early, even though I left later than I normally would have done.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm like that going to the train station on my bike every morning. I always allow 20 minutes, but it only takes me 5 or 6 to cycle it.
Yeah.
And then I'm there and I'm like, well, I'm too early every morning. So I feel, yeah. But were there other situations you had to deliberately put yourself into?
Yes. I was going out for dinner with my partner, and I had to get the bus. And we were meant to meet at 8:30, but the bus that I got, on the timetable, it said a certain time. I didn't realise it had changed, and it was actually a lot later than I thought it would be. And the bus, the route I thought it would take, it didn't take. It took a longer route. And the bus stop I thought it was going to stop at, it didn't.
Okay.
So I ended up being 15 minutes late to our date night, but it worked out well because he had time to quickly go back to his work to get something he had forgotten and then come back, and he was only waiting there for about 10 minutes instead of being there for a long time. So it's all worked out fine.
Yeah, so even though you were 5 minutes late, the world still went round.
Yeah.
Nothing ended.
No.
And whereas I'm imagining like your previous thought pattern, because I know I sort of feel like that sometimes because my work is very like time based.
Yeah.
Making sure things are done by certain times. For you, that must have been like a massive weight off, knowing that time will still move.
Yes, it was certainly after that week, and I suddenly realised that actually I don't need to be perfect. I just need to do the best that I can, and that's what we put as my new rule, and it's a rule that I'm still working on. You know, I don't have my therapist anymore because I got discharged because I'd made the progress that I made, which is fantastic progress. Couldn't believe it. I showed my mum and dad the other day and they were like, wow.
Yeah.
My depression and my anxiety went from severe, like the highest you could get, down to the lowest.
Yeah.
My anxiety went to a 4, which was just none.
Yeah.
And obviously depression to a 2, which is a solid none. Yeah. Which is fantastic.
So does that mean you're not even diagnosed with it anymore? Or
pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I still get small traits, particularly with the anxiety side of things, because there's always going to be a level of anxiety and stress with my job. Anyway, but from my point of view, it doesn't take over.
No, it's
controlled.
Yeah,
it's manageable anxiety, and that's the difference from where I was to where I am.
And if anything, because it's a job you love, it's like it's one of those sort of good kind of anxiousness things where like if you're going to be anxious, at least make it into something that's like a super productive thing.
Exactly.
Whenever I've gone on stage to do like public speaking and my heart's beating out of my chest, but I'm like, well, I'm here now and we're going to talk.
I read this really awesome quote actually, and it said, change the word anxiety and nervousness to excitement.
Yeah.
And you change your mindset. So instead of saying, oh, I'm feeling nervous today.
Yeah.
Because the feeling of nervousness and anxiety are the same. And if you change it from anxiety and nervousness to excited, you suddenly change your mindset. And I actually used it with one of my children at school.
Yeah.
Not long after I'd been back to work after being poorly. And I said, oh, you're feeling a little bit nervous? He was like, yeah, no, why don't we change that to excited? And his whole demeanour changed. I went, right, instead of feeling nervous, how do you feel? And he's like, I feel excited. And I went, exactly. We're excited. We're going to use that energy. It's excited energy, not nervous energy. And he just had this big smile on his face. So it is definitely to do with your mindset. You know, when you're in that deep depressive state, I've been there. I know I can empathise and sympathise with people when they're in that state.
Because a lot of what you've talked about is actually quite transferable. Not even to just because even though like we're talking about something very specific to you here, there have been a lot of things you've said which I'm like, that will apply to most people anyway.
Yes.
And so even if you don't have any sort of condition connected to what we've been talking about, this is still a topic that will help people. Yeah,
it's definitely something more on a lifestyle more than an illness. And I've definitely changed my whole lifestyle since being diagnosed.
You're up at 5 a.m. doing yoga. Is that every morning?
Yeah, try to.
Yeah.
Definitely try to. And then I go to the gym after work.
Nice. So you've now got a full routine. So it's yoga and meditation at 5, work 9 to 5-ish. 8
till 6.
8 till 6.
8 till 6 because of the job.
Thus as being a teacher.
Being a teacher.
A very important job and long hours. And then after that to the gym.
Yeah.
And you do that most days?
Pretty much.
And would you say there's also been like dietary changes you've made?
Definitely.
And what are some of the key ones they've been?
So I live on my own and I find I like to have a different meal each day. And obviously I find that if I was to go food shopping and I was to make a lasagna and then like chicken and potatoes, it would be very expensive. So what I do is, because I'm on my own, I buy Weight Watchers ready meals. They're all calorie counted, all healthy, brilliant, and I just have them at lunchtime at work instead of in the evening.
Yeah.
So I have a really big breakfast. So I tend to have 2 eggs, lightly boiled, so that I can, like dip some bread into them and
eggy
stuff.
soldiers.
Eggy soldiers, yeah. And then I have a big meal at lunchtime to get me through the afternoon, and then in the evening just a light snack, because I was finding that I wasn't eating in the evenings because after going to work, it's very tiring, and being on your own, I just want to go to bed. So
it's important to still eat in the evening.
It is. So I just have a light snack, and that's helped a lot because I'm still eating, so it's still supporting my body, but it's healthy as well. Making sure I've got fruit in the house, plenty of water, no caffeine or limited caffeine. I only have 1 to 2 cups of tea a day.
Yeah, that's and for being British, that's very low.
Yes, very, very low. But yeah, it has been a huge lifestyle change, mindset change as well.
Yeah, I think we've the mindset one we've fully covered. Like the caffeine stuff is like so difficult, and sugar as well.
Yes, that sugar intake. When I get super stressed, I eat a lot of chocolate. And that's my go-to, make me feel better.
Yeah.
But then obviously it doesn't, because you then feel rubbish afterwards.
It's like a short term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely, and a routine with my house cleaning as well.
So instead of cleaning just all the time whenever you see a mess, it's like
once a week.
Before it would have been every time I see a mess I'll clean that.
Yeah.
But now it's I'll leave it until Saturday or Friday night.
Yeah.
And then go through and make all those changes.
Yeah, definitely. And also it's okay, it's not done now, but it will be done.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah, because that's not the end of the world, having like a couple of like clothes piled up in a corner or something.
Yeah.
Which I know, because I'm a little bit. I need to improve that on myself. My family have been putting together a kitchen at the minute, and like all the boxes are in my room.
Yeah.
So that's why it's a mess at the minute.
Oh, the excuses.
We deal. The excuses coming out of being exposed on my own podcast. But I'd like to bring it back right to the beginning.
Yes.
So you initially said this was due to a fall.
Yes.
So you just fell over when you were out on one night, and then that it all stemmed from there, just that one moment. And what was the situation like that caused that?
So we were going out for end of term drinks, which we do every term, every half term. It was the May half term. We had gone out. We had started off in Margate. I had one very small glass of red wine because I didn't feel like drinking. I didn't feel like going all out. I just wanted to go and dance. And so I only had the one. And we then moved from Margate to Ramsgate. And we went to a club with a hard laminate floor. And I was in heels, not big heels. I'm not a big heel kind of girl. Just normal sized little heels.
You're not even intoxicated.
I'm not even intoxicated, nothing. And my friend goes off to the toilet, and I'm waiting outside, and then I'm like, oh, actually, I'll go as well. And as I've walked in, I'm just walking along. It's empty because it was still quite early. Must have been about 10, half 10. And I'm walking along, and my foot, one of the heels, slips on the floor. And I go down, and my knee hits the floor really hard, and my hands do as well, because I put my hands out to hold me, and it sends this jolt through my body, just this whole shock.
Yeah.
And I then get up. Obviously, I'm feeling very embarrassed, so I'm like, oh God, luckily it was quite empty, but obviously there was still bar staff, and I just go straight into the toilet, and I'm standing there, and I'm looking in the mirror, and I'm like, I don't feel very well, and it goes all black around the sides. And the next thing I know is I'm waking up on the floor with my friend shouting my name.
Because you've fallen and hit your head.
Because I've fallen and hurt my head.
From the shock.
Yeah, from the shock of the first fall. And I I thought I had been hit. I honestly felt like I'd been hit on the back of the head. So the first thing I did was grab for my bag because I was like, oh my God, I've been kidnapped. That fear just came over me. I've been hit on the head. My bag's missing. Oh my God, what's happened?
And the way you're describing it, it's so vivid as well. Like you've remembered every detail.
Yeah.
And it's what fascinates me most about this is like a very normal situation. Like it's a bathroom on an evening,
yes.
like just out in a town.
Yeah, from a head injury, it's insane that for a whole year and a bit of my life has been so rocky, up and down, hospitals, just from a head injury.
Yeah, and I mean, it's come from something so small. It's like, I guess, I don't even know what advice to give for it, because you've just fallen over.
I've just fallen over, yeah. There's nothing.
It's a fluke.
Yeah.
It's a complete fluke.
Complete fluke. You know, there's been a lot of research into this condition. Not many people are aware of it. I was not aware of it. My family, we've never heard of it before.
But you said it was more common than...
But it's a lot more common than people realise. There was an Olympic canoeist my mum found on one of the forums. She found her story. She's an Olympic canoeist. She was at that level. She was about to go to the Olympics, and she had a canoeing accident and hit her head, very similar to me. She then developed my condition, except she was in a wheelchair. She was confined to a wheelchair. She then worked very hard to get herself up to Olympic standard again.
Yes.
And she did.
Oh, wow.
She managed to do it, and then she hit her head again.
No.
And was right back. That's obviously a fear of mine. You know, my mum is very much like, don't ever hit your head again. Every time I hit my head, she's like, how are you? Are you okay? And I'm like, I'm good. It's
understandable to have that worry. Like, I know when I went through a really bad bout of back pain. Like, so you know what you said about how the doctors didn't know what it was,
yeah.
And so but it all started to improve the moment that you knew what it was and you could identify. For me, they thought it was spinal.
Yeah.
So I had all the spinal tests in the world. I had a 3-hour MRI, and nothing came back from it because it wasn't spinal; it was muscular.
Yes.
And once I knew what it was, I could combat it. But because I had it for 2 or 3 years, I did not ever want to fall over, because falling over and hitting my back would send the worst pain. And there was one time I tripped on a cobblestone, and it sent the biggest shock I've ever had up my back.
Yeah.
And it was right outside work, where I was about to go through the door into my retail job at the time. This was like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And I just had to stop for a bit. And so I know what you mean about, like, you feel like your head has to be this thing that's protected now all the time. And I had that with my back. But it was like when my friends were doing, like, in the gym, we were doing like headstands.
Yeah.
And I was so nervous to try it, and it was the first time I actually put myself in a position where, like, hey, this could go wrong again. Because, I mean, you've got to break that eventually, don't you?
Yes.
That worry. Because you're back to normal now.
I am, yeah. You know, it's still a daily struggle now and then. You know, if I wake up and I'm jolted awake from either like an alarm, particularly if I've gone into deep sleep, sometimes my brain and my body aren't in sync.
Yeah.
So that's what we call it, me and my mum. My brain and body aren't in sync. So it just takes a little bit of time for my brain and body to get into sync. It could be an hour, it could be 5 minutes, it could be 3 hours. But eventually it will get into sync. If it doesn't, then I risk seizure.
Yeah.
But at the moment, it has been getting back into sync, and I'm bringing myself back round, and then I am okay.
And you're staying calm in every situation.
Yes.
Yeah, and I imagine like being back in front of the classroom as well. I imagine that was initially, you were probably quite nervous at the idea of when they were more frequent, especially those 2 or 3 weeks you said you had where you were thrown back into teaching.
Yeah.
And how does teaching now compare to those 2 weeks? It must be lifetimes
well,
apart.
I mean, it wasn't just the 2 weeks, because I was still having the seizures. I mean, the 2 weeks phased return, I was, you know, obviously trying to return to the classroom and deal with the seizures at the same time, but I was still having seizures regularly even after those 2 weeks, all the way through March and February as well. And my fear was to have one in front of the children.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do that. I've got a little nephew. He's now 6, going to be 7. And he had seen some of the seizures. You know, we tried to protect him as much as possible. When I was going into one, my mum would try and distract him and take him away somewhere. But he knew that I wasn't well. And you know, after I'd come round, he would say to me, "Oh, are you okay, Auntie Devon?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm okay now. I'm just tired, so I'm going to have a sleep." He's like, "Okay." But with a class of 30 children who are not...
And they're all looking at you.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, because that was probably my biggest, most difficult question to ask. The being in front of so many people, knowing that when it was at a turbulent time, that must have been incredibly difficult for you.
Very difficult. You know, I know how it feels to be in them. I have a video on my phone from October last year at the party that I was talking about at Halloween. My friend videoed it. To this day, I cannot watch it. I will not watch it because I know what it feels like to be in the seizure. My family have told me that when they watch it, it's very hard, and I know how they all feel about watching one. I don't want to watch one and have both sides. I know that sounds very selfish, but I know what it feels like to be in one. I don't want to know what it looks like from the outside as well, because I can see what's happening and I feel what's going on, but I'm also seeing it at the same time. I don't want to feel what they all feel by seeing it.
And so, and when, like, because your family have seen it, when you were having seizures more frequently, what's the best thing for someone to do when you're having a seizure? Is it to put you in a certain position? Because I have no experience with this. What's the best thing to do if you're in a seizure?
So very similar to epilepsy, you move everything. You just minimise the risk of hurt to that person on the floor. So when I have them in the classroom, when I've had them in the classroom, where we have big tables, I go down, I wake up, tables have been moved.
Yeah.
Because your body is going, it's like running marathons when you have one seizure. So that just all needs to be cleared. For me, because I can still hear, even though I can't communicate or see, a lot of reassurance. Devon, you're okay. It will end. Don't worry. It will finish. We're all here. Just that reassurance, that calmness.
But when you're in it, so you physically can't control movement.
No.
But yeah, I guess, does everyone that has this condition also have the ability to hear, or does it vary person to person?
I think everybody has the ability to hear, because as soon as I said that to the neurologist, he was like, "Yeah, I know exactly what this is." Because I could hear, because the way that the seizure that the body has is different to an epileptic seizure. So with epilepsy, your arms and legs are kind of all flying everywhere.
Yeah.
Whereas with my seizure, my body and my arms and my legs all contract in.
You will pull in.
I pull in and go, instead of having them kind of everywhere. So yeah.
Yeah, it's keep things away from the person. They
Yes.
can't hurt themselves.
Yeah.
And then just sort of let it happen, but
Let
make
it
sure they're reassured.
Yeah, just reassure them. And even when they wake up, so when I was in the height of it, it would take me a long time to come around, and I'd be very tired afterwards. So recovery position until they are okay in themselves to sit up. Once I was diagnosed, I didn't need to go back to hospital after every seizure.
Yeah, because you had the people around who knew how to deal with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had that diagnosis. There's nothing a hospital can do.
Yeah.
And actually they can make it worse, because they can put tubes down you and stuff like that, when actually you don't need them. You just need the seizure to pass and then come round.
And yeah, and having people in your life that actually know the procedure, it fills you with so much like reassurance.
Yes.
Like you know, I have a peanut allergy.
Yes.
When I'm out with my family, I have absolutely no problems because I have an EpiPen in my bag at all times. If I were to have something with peanuts in, they'd know the exact procedure. And I also keep something in my wallet. And I tell everyone, hey, if it's going wrong, then you can look at the thing in my wallet and it'll step by step as to what you need to do to give me the support. So it sounds like you've got that with friends and family, knowing exactly what to do. Whereas I imagine before, when no one knew what it was, you didn't know what the best thing to do, and that adds another
anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But with that taken away, and so does everyone in your life, like all the teaching assistants, all the partners, parents, family, they all know what to do.
So in my life, personal life, yes, everybody in my life knows about it. My whole family, my partner, my partner's family, a lot of people. I'm very open with it because, like yourself, if you're out and you're with somebody who doesn't know, they're not gonna. If you suddenly go into an allergic reaction, or if I go into a seizure, they're gonna call an ambulance. They're not gonna know what to do. Whereas actually, if you just have that conversation, look, if I go into a seizure, just leave me, let me come round. I can hear you, so just reassure me, I'll be fine. A 2-minute conversation like that is better than
a panicked ambulance
call, going into hospital for a day or whatever, and then having unnecessary, because it's not what I need at all. But at work, everybody knows I was off. The main teaching staff members are all aware of my situation. Majority of them are aware. They all know I've been off poorly. My close ones know why. But I wasn't sure when I went back to work who knew. Yeah. And then everybody knew because I was having seizures in the staff room. I was having seizures at staff meetings. I was having seizures. Everybody was exposed to them, particularly the teaching staff. Whereas the TA staff, they weren't so much exposed, that I was able to keep that quite hidden.
So when you say everyone knows, it was the teachers, no students?
No students knew why I was off poorly. Parents did not know why I was off. One of the parents worked in the hospital, so I'm not sure if they knew. But yeah, they knew it was something serious because of how long I was off for, and they knew that I was in and out of hospital, but they don't know for what particular reason. It's something that I've kept very...
Well, you just need the people closest to you to know, because then they're going to be the ones that are going to have to be there for if anything happens.
Yeah, I mean, the parents of the children I taught last year, the children who obviously didn't have me as their teacher for the 3 months, when I came back, they were so sympathetic. They were like, oh, how are you? Are you okay? And it's that I am okay. It is a lifelong condition that I'm coping with, but I am okay now.
Well, that's good, because it sounds like you've got a good, almost like a friendship and understanding with the parents of those kids. Yeah,
because, when you say illness, they think, oh, you're 100% better now. I'm not. I will never be 100% better. This is a condition, not an illness. This is something that I will have for the rest of my life. I'm okay now, but say something really dramatic happens, like a parent death or a grandparent death or a financial situation or loss of a job, that could relapse me. Yeah. Even though I've had my therapy, I could still suddenly, because it's how my body copes.
But it's also okay to relapse because you've recovered. Yeah. And will do. And obviously there will be situations throughout both of our lives where those kind of high intensity, it's going to happen. Like whether it be job or family. Yeah. Big decisions you got to make. I mean, I'm still a student. I've got to move out eventually. Big decisions. You're already many steps ahead of me. But and like you're probably quite confident now that if there was any slight relapse, even just one little seizure, that isn't going to put you down at all, is it?
No. I mean, obviously, it would be devastating because at this particular point in time, I have been so far without a seizure, and I am trying to get my license back for my car. So, because that was taken away from me because of my illness, and had to declare my condition. So I'm fighting to get my license back because they said 3 months, and obviously where it's been over 3 months, they're still trying, still getting there. They have to make sure that I am fit to drive. Yeah, I know I am, but they have to make sure. And obviously I don't want to have a seizure because then I'm right back to square one.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Well, it sounds like at the minute things are building nicely though, because you've got stability. Yeah. You're going to get the car back soon.
Oh, yeah. Getting the car back.
So are you at buses at the minute?
Yes, buses. family, partner. Yeah.
Nothing wrong with public transport.
Absolutely
I live
not.
on the trains.
Yes.
So.
Oh, yes. Over the summer holidays, I was going on the bus, on the train, everywhere. Hasn't stopped me, and I will never allow it to stop me, this condition.
Yeah, and that is an empowering message. So, for everyone listening, this is a success story. Devon has done amazingly well. And we're going to go back to Devon in just a moment to sort of wrap up what we've been talking about on the podcast. I'm going to sort of punt for just at the moment other topics we've got coming up and other people we're going to be hearing from on the show in the future. So when you're listening to this, we're moving into the Christmas period, which feels weird to say. We're sitting here in September talking about Christmas. We got Joel coming up soon. You know Joel. Right?
I do know Joel, yes.
Yeah. He's going to be talking about his blacksmithing.
Oh, fantastic.
And so he's doing a whole episode about that. That's going to be very, very soon. This is either late November or early December, this episode. It's also going to be my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. We're 3 months out from the birthday at the point of recording, but we're nearly there. And I will be doing an episode about... I'm going to post questions on Facebook and Instagram asking things you want to know about me. It's going to be a getting to know me episode because I love getting all these fascinating guests like Devon today to talk about their stories, but I'm going to be selfish and take one episode for me for my birthday. And then after that we've got the Christmas special, and I'll be revealing who we have for the Christmas special when I talk to Joel on the podcast, which has already been recorded. That was a fabulous episode to do. We did it in his forge in Ashford, surrounded by his furnace, his fly press, his... I don't want to name all the others because I think I'm going to get them wrong. He had an anvil as well. Really cool kit. Pictures will be going up on the Facebook page about that. But that's all the stuff to come up over the festive period. And we're also looking for other people to talk about certain subjects. I want to talk to people about their creative arts. I want to talk to a director, writer, producer. Maybe it's in radio, this medium, like we had with Mimi a few weeks ago. Maybe you're a filmmaker. Maybe you make music videos, ads. I want to talk about someone who's making something right now. If that's you, and you're between 18 and 30, and you live in Kent, do get in touch. You can go to the Facebook page at the My Generation Podcast. Inboxing the page is the best way to get featured on the show. So this will be my final question, and it's one I ask at the end of pretty much every episode of the podcast. But what do you think, Devon, you've learned from talking in this last hour about your condition for you, just by getting it out and open?
That I know much more about it than I ever thought I did, and then I just want to help, and I hope it helps somebody listening who is either going through something similar or knows somebody going through something similar, that there's always hope.
And would listeners, if there's anyone who wanted to, be able to get in touch with you if they needed to? Or is there a better place to point them in terms of support?
No, I'm more than happy for people to contact me if they want to. Obviously through Facebook.
Yeah, if you go through the Facebook page at the My Generation Podcast, and I can put you in touch with Devon. Is there anything else that you wanted to add before we close?
No, just stay hopeful, stay positive, and just live life to the fullest, really.
Yeah, and Devon, before coming on, she was thought that she wouldn't be able to talk about this subject too much, and we've done an hour solid, so that was definitely wrong. You could talk about this, and it's very informative, and we've got a lot to learn for both people who have got the same condition as you, but I think there's been a lot of transferable things.
Yes, definitely.
And I think that this episode actually goes quite nicely hand in hand with episode 11, where we talked to Shami. You know Shami?
Yes.
We talked about meditation and philosophy.
Oh, fantastic.
So this will be going into the mental health playlist, and playlist links will be in the description, where you can find currently only the 2 episodes of the podcast that are on this sort of subject. We've also had Connor talk about mental health specifically within sport.
Yeah.
So those episodes will all be there. So if this is a subject that you are interested in, for the more broader sense, that's the best playlist on the podcast.
Yeah.
So I think there's hundreds of links, and
Absolutely.
This one episode could take you hours and hours into the future. But Devon, thank you very much for joining me today.
No, thank you, Max, for having me.
Not a problem. And would we be able to get you back on the podcast in the future?
Yes.
Definitely. Loved it. Well, thank you very much for joining us. We will be back again next week, where we'll either be doing my birthday episode or Joel. Oh, it's Christmas nearly when you're hearing this. This is mad to me. Okay, so that concludes this week's episode of the My Generation podcast. What a way to end. Devon, thank you for joining me. And we've got so much new content coming up, and we're going to be getting Devon back on in the new year at some point. Thank you all very much for listening to the My Generation podcast, and we will see you all next week.